Hello, and welcome to Eastern Geeks Out, an EP Media associated podcast where I'll be discussing news and interesting topics in the gaming and entertainment world. My name is Deforest White, and I'll be your host for the duration of these episodes. Last time, we talked about the big mysterious Capcom countdown that was subsequently revealed to be Street Fighter VI and the Capcom Fighting Collection. Street Fighter VI to nobody's surprise, and the Capcom Fighting Collections to my pleasant surprise. This episode will be largely focused on Sony's recent State of Play lineup. For those of you who missed it, a couple days ago they showed off a whole bunch of new games that are coming to the PS4 and PS5, and Capcom actually got to show off a little bit there as well, right out the gate, with one of the most bizarre announcements that I have ever seen. The presentation opened with a big reveal trailer, large cinematic CG, and it was a competitive and or cooperative hero shooter style game where as giant armored suits you fight against a wave of dinosaurs that rain from the sky. This is ridiculous, and also it's kind of already a thing. The game is called Exoprimal, and it's being released by Capcom. It's similar in style to Overwatch. Actually, there's a character that just straight up is Genji. I don't know how they managed to get that past quality control, but, like, it's not even close to being, like, that's just Genji. They just took Genji from Overwatch and put him in the game. I digress. Capcom already has a dinosaur game that hasn't seen the light of day in forever, called Dino Crisis, that was essentially Resident Evil but with dinosaurs, where it was this, like, sort of goofy horror game where you just ran around shooting dinosaurs, and it was a fun time. And then the new game, Exoprimal, is made in the Resident Evil engine, or the RE engine, like the modern version, and features characters that look very similar to the ones in Dino Crisis, so I guess you could call it like a spiritual successor of sorts. However, the State of Play made specific note that this is a new IP from Capcom, meaning it's not at all the same copyright. I would not be surprised even slightly if later on down the line there's like a reveal where, oh, they take place in the same universe, or, oh, we're gonna have crossover characters from one to the other. But it's a truly bizarre announcement. Like, you could make this same announcement and bring the hype from, like, the revival of the series by, instead of just calling it Exoprimal, calling it Dino Crisis Exoprimal. But decisions were made and that didn't happen. It confuses me quite a lot. Square Enix had a very heavy presence during the State of Play presentation with, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 or 4 games. There's the Deofield Chronicle, which looks to take heavy inspiration from Fire Emblem Three Houses in its presentation, but it seems to be more of like an RTS successor to Final Fantasy Tactics. There's Valkyrie Elysium, a new Valkyrie profile game, which looks closer to Nier than anything else. It honestly seems like it doesn't have very many RPG elements to it. The game itself, the characters look very pretty. The environments that they are in also look very pretty. They are in horribly clashing art styles, and I personally am not a fan. I feel like if you went one direction or the other, the game would look a lot better. But from what we've seen now, I'm not 100% sold. Or even slightly sold, really. I'm not buying this game. Returnal, one of the big PS5 starting lineup games, is getting new DLC with a ton of content. It's going to add co-op modes, a new area, and a tower mode where you move up the floors. For those who aren't familiar with Returnal, the combat is similar to Nier in how projectiles are managed, but takes more the form of a third and first person shooter with roguelike elements. So every time you die, you start over from the beginning, and the game is procedurally generated as you go on. We also got a new look at Ghostwire Tokyo, which I've been excited for ever since it first got announced. Now, this game finds itself in an interesting place because, if I'm not mistaken, this is Tango and what's the team? Arcane working alongside Bethesda to release this game. And in case you may have forgotten, Bethesda was acquired by Microsoft earlier in 2021, and that means that this is potentially the last Bethesda game that we're going to see on PlayStation consoles going towards the future. We don't know that for certain, but it would be a very strange send-off for one of the titans of the gaming industry. However, the game itself looks rad as hell. There's a very heavy focus on magic-based combat that looks similar in style to the mutant abilities from the BioShock games, but much more fast-paced. The game's open world. There's like a pseudo grappling hook mechanic that looks similar to the one in Monster Hunter Rise. There's giant spiritual battles. There's a lot of like Mob Psycho 100 looking stuff that is absolutely breathtaking. I'm very excited. This game looks so hype, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. After that, we got more of a look at Forspoken. Forspoken is a game where you're some girl and you get isekai. Isekai being the genre where a person is taken from their current world to a new one without much warning. And I mean, that it looks so smooth. I have a couple misgivings about the gameplay, but all in all, what it comes down to is, do things chain well together? And from what we saw in this trailer, they do. We got to see a lot of movement as far as like high jumping. There's magic abilities that let you surf on water and combo that surf into like a flame ring looking like Demon Slayer. There's a very heavy focus on maneuverability in midair. There's David Merchant reprising his role as Wheatley from Portal 2, so that's pretty neat. That's a joke. I don't believe he's actually Wheatley, but he's basically Wheatley. The game looks so fun. I'm very excited for it. I already know it's gonna be so expensive, but like, I mean, in the era of Elden Ring, I guess that's what we're looking forward to. Stranger of Paradise. People, if you haven't forgotten about this game, this is a Final Fantasy prequel game. It's coming out on March 18th, I believe, for both PS4 and PS5. And this trailer was a lot cooler than the last trailer we got for this game, but way less funny. When the initial Stranger of Paradise reveal happened, I remember Twitter absolutely blew up with people being like, "I'm Chaos. I want to kill Chaos. I'm going to the tower to kill Chaos. Chaos killed my parents, so I'm going to kill Chaos." And there was a whole lot of that. Much less Chaos killing in this trailer. Honestly, mostly just fighting monsters, turning them into crystals, ripping them apart, taking their damn heads off. Pretty neat. We got a look at Gundam Evolution, which was announced forever ago. But, I mean, it looks fun. It's very similar in style to, like, Overwatch or Halo, but the environments have, like, this very realistic-looking art style to them, and the characters are Gundams. They look like Gundams. You got kind of a Jump Force situation going on where you've got, like, all these wacky anime characters in their cel-shaded art styles put up against, like, photorealistic Times Square. And Gundam Evolution falls into that same category, where there's, like, here's Blood Gulch from Halo, but it's, like, the prettiest Blood Gulch you've ever seen. And here's a character from 1983 who looks like they're from 1983. And it's very entertaining to see, like, the dichotomy of how each like Gundam is differentiated from each other, but there's no getting past that art style. Like, I'm not against it, and I understand why they did it. I just don't think it looks as fantastic as it possibly could. However, I'm already gonna go ahead and say this seems like a game that the modding community is gonna have a field day with, because I do know this one is being released on PS4, PS5, and PC. So, for the PC crowd at least, there's gonna be so many mods for this game. Like, y'all, you're not ready for when like Kaneko Ito shows up as a giant robot. That's gonna be great. After that, they announced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection, which includes 13 Ninja Turtles games from both the 16-bit and 8-bit era. There's a bunch of them. The most notable ones are like Turtles in Time, of course. You got the arcade release. You got the Manhattan Project and arcade game for NES. But the one that excites me the most is Tournament Fighters, both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis versions. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm wrong. The Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and NES versions. I didn't know there was an NES version. This is a 1v1 fighting game that actually is pretty good. Like, for some reason, it has a presence in the FGC even now, which is wild to me. The fact that there's still communities playing, like, Ninja Turtles and Sailor Moon and Ranma 1/2 on the Sega Genesis is crazy. But I'm here for it. I love that. Fantastic. There was a reveal for a game called Giga Bash, which is a top-down, looks like a 4-player free-for-all game in which you play as kaijus with special abilities and you fight each other over top of a city. We don't have a whole lot of details on that one yet, but it looks fun. And then an announcement that almost killed me because of the way that it was presented. The PlayStation announcer says the words, reintroducing a fan-favorite fighting game in a bizarre way, or something along those lines. And I'm thinking, oh my god, there's no way they're gonna put the JoJo Capcom fighting game on here. We're not getting Heritage to the Future. This is a bait and switch. And then the first, like, scene that we see of the trailer is the iconic, like, the JoJo Doom sound effects. And I fully stood up. I flipped, like, pillows off of couches. I may have, like, permanently damaged my friend Nick's eardrums. And then it was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle Remake. I'm not disappointed exactly, but I feel like I was led on. When you say fan-favorite fighting game and you say bizarre, I think you're gonna talk about the fan-favorite JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game. And don't get me wrong, All-Star Battle's good. CyberConnect 2 does fantastic work, but they do basically just make anime arena games. You got your Storms on the Naruto side of things. You got the Hinokami Chronicles on Demon Slayer. You got, what was it? They worked with Arc System Works to do, was it Kill la Kill If? I think that was them. Plus also, like, the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. And I think they also did My Hero One's Justice. Man, CyberConnect 2 does a lot. But this is a 2013 PS3 game that is getting a remaster with an additional 18 characters added to the roster. And that's super cool. I really hope Foo Fighters is playable. I'm going to buy this game. However, I want all of you to know that I had a heart attack and it's your fault. So, take that for what you will. Trek to Yomi. This one is a side-scrolling sort of samurai game where the entire game is voice acted entirely in Japanese by some pretty, like, notable Japanese actors. and is presented in the style of old samurai films. The whole thing's black and white, and it looks rad as hell. Looks like there's a lot of like stance-based gameplay, lots of footsies. I'm very excited to see like how fluid the combat is in the hands of an actual player and not like in a trailer. It looks super cool. I don't actually think it's being developed by a Japanese studio, though. I could be wrong about that, but I believe I read that it was being like developed by a guy named Leonard. So I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'll look that up real quick. Leonard Menciari and the Shadow Warrior Studio Flying Hog. That one's coming out in the spring to both PlayStation and PC via Steam, and I mean, it looks cool. I'm excited for it. We had Sifu released recently. That was also a very like stance-based combat fighting game, or not fighting game, stance-based combat game where you've got like a big focus on grounded martial arts, and it's so smooth looking. I'm very excited to see like if this is the direction that games are going to be taking as far as combat. Guys, we might even be able to make Shenmue work, and that doesn't happen. Man, imagine a Yakuza game like that. That'd be crazy. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Elden Ring came out. I'm not going to talk too much about this because all of you already know that Elden Ring came out because everyone everywhere has been talking about Elden Ring coming out. And I'm going to be honest, it's not my thing. I'm not a fan of Souls games. I played Sekiro, and that was really the only one that I enjoyed. I couldn't even get into Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. Demon Souls didn't look too appealing to me. I think largely it's just the art style of the games that I don't enjoy. But I find myself vastly in the minority here. Like, don't get me wrong, respect to the people on the development team. Like, it's very pretty. I just don't like it. In other more niche news, F-Zero X is getting a release on the Nintendo Switch via the Nintendo Switch Online service. Specifically the expansion pack that allows you to play Nintendo 64 games. The F-Zero franchise has been dormant for entirely too long. If I'm not mistaken, the last game that they had released was F-Zero GX on the GameCube in 2003. I don't think there was another one after that. So it's been a full, 19 years since the last F-Zero game came out? And I'd be curious to see if Nintendo releasing F-Zero X on Nintendo 64 Online is some way to gauge interest and maybe see if there would be a market for a new F-Zero game, because you may recall there's actually 2 F-Zero themed tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So there is legitimate interest. Like, Captain Falcon is an icon via Smash alone, but the number of people who have actually played F-Zero in the modern era is rapidly dwindling. Like, people are playing the character in Smash who've never heard of the series he's from, or may have been playing him for years and have never heard of the series he's from. I think if that's the case, cool, I'm here for it, let's go. But also, if that's the case, does that mean that Mother announcement was also gauging interest? Because, guys, we're interested in Mother. Please release Mother 3. I don't care if you, like, fully remake it, like Link's Awakening style. You can do that, or you can just release it. I'd pay a full $60 for that game to be released in its GBA format on the Switch. Do it, you cowards. The last thing, just a few hours before I started recording, Kowloon High School Chronicle Origin of Adventure is getting a PS4 port in 2022. Not a PS5 one, though. I think this is very interesting, because this is a port of a game from 2003 released by Atlas that is a high school-based Egyptian dungeon crawler that takes heavy inspiration from Indiana Jones. And it is like the opposite of a weeb game. It feels like it was made by someone who absolutely loved the Indiana Jones films and was like, I want to do that. So they made an entire world where they could like live out that fantasy. And it is legitimately like a cool idea for a game. It's very well implemented in the remaster that came out on Switch last year. And this PS4 port is a port of that remaster. However, I'm wondering why it is that it's not being ported to next-gen consoles. Obviously, on the PS5, you can play the PS4 versions because PS5 does have backwards compatibility. However, it seems like, at least from my perspective, you would be able to make a better profit off of this, considering that it is identical to release the game on both platforms. Maybe it's a performance issue, and there would be like nothing truly gained from making a separate PS5 version, but it's interesting, to say the least, to see games releasing solely on previous gen consoles as we move forward. And I realize I'm saying this where like Just Dance even now is releasing on the Wii every year, which is ridiculous, but I mean, that's the state of things. That's really all I have to talk about today. Not a whole lot going on in the gaming sphere as far as like new developments and crazy stuff. I'd like to talk a little bit about like the stuff going on at EVO and Nintendo pulling out Smash Brothers from the competitive tournaments, but I'm sure you're all sick of hearing me talk about fighting games constantly at this point. I have been on my King of Fighters grind. Oh god, I said grind unironically. I'm dying. I've been playing King of Fighters nonstop for the past like 3 or 4 weeks, so that has been truly all I've thought about. But I mean, power to you. Shoutouts to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and Skullgirls for making it to EVO on main stage this year. Outside of that, I don't really have too much to talk about. Let's see if we can get Dino Crisis remasters though before Exoprimal comes out. That'd be cool. Thank you so much for listening though. If you'd like to contact me or the EP Media staff for anything regarding the podcast or any questions, comments, and feedback, my email is deforest_white124@mymail.eku.edu, and you can also find me at www.easternprogress.com. You can also contact the Eastern Progress at their at Eastern Progress on Instagram and Twitter, or at the Eastern Progress on Facebook, or again, you can find them on www.easternprogress.com. Please direct any questions, comments, or feedback on the podcast itself towards me at my email, or our broadcasting director, Ryan Gumm, at ryan_gum1@mymail.eku.edu. And that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope you all have a fantastic spring break, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.